Hello everybody, welcome here to the Victory channel. My name is Pete.
My name is Martin.
And today we're going to have a look at the new Victory Deputy amplifier. So let's talk about how the Deputy came about. I mean, what do we think? I mean, it's been a while now, hasn't it?
It's probably been a lot longer than we think.
Yeah.
Certainly. I think it was you played the original Sheriff 25.
Yeah.
And you were getting a lot of mileage, if you like, from the vintage channel of the Sheriff.
Yeah.
I thought, how about we expand on that and make an amplifier, just a single channel amplifier, give that a few more features of its own.
Absolutely.
For you, I've noticed you can be quite a dynamic guitar player. And so if you've got a sound where if you play lightly, it'll be very clean.
Yeah.
But it's got if it's set at the edge of breakup and you hit it hard, then it will break up.
Yeah.
If you play very clean, there is a nicer harmonic content, even if you're not going for any dirt.
Yeah.
That it's still there. If you're playing lightly and you get that nice chime which makes the sound a more touch sensitive, so it opens the whole thing out nicely.
I think also having the master on this amp, the master volume, so you'll have gain and a master, makes it much easier to control in a home environment.
Yes.
Because that has been another thing that people that wants that kind of breakup, you kind of need the higher volume, but a lot of those amps doesn't have a master. And I think you can, with a master volume, which is this got, and the whole Victory range has got the master volume, it's so great because you can get good tones at relatively low volume.
But I always think it's important that you can get a sound that isn't hard work, and you can get all those subtleties at a volume that won't get you told off.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's good to be told off by volume because volume is not a bad thing.
No.
Which this has got tons of as well. But I think using Victory amps for the last 9 years as it's been now, like we mentioned, and seeing it sort of progress and being a part of developing the amps and the whole thing about putting everything at 12 o'clock and making that sound good, it's not always been like that. That's only been a recent things, where you
Even for me, that's been a recent.
Yeah, where you go, no, I need to, like a Marshall JTM, you have to, but the old ones, you have to treble all the way down and bass up to get anything out of it, but developing something that at 12 o'clock, it just sounds great, but you still have the options of doing more gain and then less volume, or the other way around. And then having something that's sort of in between a very clean amplifier and a really sort of Marshall type, really crunchy, high gain amplifier, that's what I thought. That's what I've been saying all along. That was kind of missing in the Victory catalog, and I think you absolutely nailed the design of this amp.
A very popular way to run an M-type amplifier with no master volume and 4 inputs was people would like to plug into the top left trebly input and then link to the normal.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, I'll do that inside, and I'll sort of balance it in a way that I think doesn't make anything too loose on the low end.
Yeah.
But adds the body to the sound.
Yeah.
So that people don't, get offended by the trebliness that can ensue.
On those type of amps, absolutely. It can be quite harsh, can't it?
It can.
Yeah.
Until you get a decent amount of volume and other things giving up on you, as it were. So you're actually running in 2 valve stages simultaneously with the input. That's in parallel, if you will.
Yeah.
Thereafter, it's fairly standard. There's a little extra gain stage which takes care of those touch-sensitive sounds, etc., that we wanted to include, and then a tone stack. That's the preamp taken care of. Series effects loop.
Effects loop as well.
Yeah, which is, I think, a necessity, really. If you've got some overdrive going on in the preamp, things like reverbs, delays, etc., there you go. And then a valve phase splitter. Yeah. But there are many guitar players with many classic guitar sounds on record where effects loops didn't exist.
Yeah, that's how I've always done it.
Yeah,
I've always plugged everything straight in the front because I used to have old amps that never had effects loops. And I think when you come from that kind of old school thing, I know the reverb and delay sounds better in the effects loop. I understand the clarity of it all, but there's also a certain charm of that. And but the fact is that you've got all of that gain on tap. That's because it does gain. There's gain in it. You can absolutely get a super nice crank. You don't back humbucker, just there it is.
Yes.
But you can also get a clean tone out of it.
Yeah.
And I've the last 4 years or whatever, getting into that kind of putting an overdrive on, where the amp is all on the cusp of just overdriving. That whole sort of thing you were talking about earlier, that is so touch sensitive. If you go on a back pickup, the pickup will make the amp distort,
Yes.
Or if you're on the neck pickup, it won't do it. You can get beautiful clean tones if you touch it gently, Yeah. That's the magic of amplifiers. Talking of settings, so you got reverb in here as well.
Indeed, yes.
Which is something that, for me, I loved in the V40 and DP40. Reverb in an amplifier is super cool to have. You can just turn it off if you don't like it. But you don't see many, we'd say M-type, any that kind of, there's none with like reverb in them.
Not really, no.
Is there?
No.
And that's another thing I was like, you need to have reverb in it, because the Sheriff doesn't have reverb in it. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But so there's a digital reverb in it, but it sounds amazing, And I don't know why nobody's ever done that before. So there's 2 switches on the front of this amp as well.
Yes.
You got a bright switch.
Yep.
And then you've got a voice switch.
Yes.
But the amount of gain that's in here, just explain how those voice switches work.
The first position, because I think originally we spoke about 2-position switch, and we ended up with a middle position as well.
Yeah.
But the first position is the lowest gain.
Yeah.
Because that was an important thing, that in the gain range of the gain control, there was as much clean headroom available there.
Yeah.
So that's voice 1. Voice 2, there's just more signal coming from the volume control. So it just allows, there's a bigger voltage going to the next stage. Mm-hmm. So it's literally all it does. But you will then get more harmonic content, some more treble, etc. And then the third one, there's a deliberate upper mid boost, so that you still can get a decent amount of clean headroom from your guitar volume, etc. But there's an upper mid boost there, so that it will take you kind of into rock, not metal, but certainly that would cover quite a bit of rock territory.
Yeah, I mean it's not a metal amp. This amp.
No.
It's more that rocky.
Yeah, classic rock.
Brit pickup, E chord. Yep. Whatever, just that classic rock kind of tone. The voice switch is just the idea of having that within the amp, because it's a 1-channel amplifier.
Yes.
There's not 2, it's 1 channel, super simple, master, gain, treble, mid and bass, and then you got these options of the voice switch.
Yes.
Which gives you almost 3 channels in the amp. Not switchable, but you can go, today I like it clean, and then I want a little bit more on it here if you want that.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that was the way of getting a super simple amplifier, in my opinion, to have a little bit more, something that might appeal to other people than just...
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, because the funny thing is, this could be a rock player's, it can appeal to a rock player who wants some clean tones, or it can, like me, who loves a clean tone, but sometimes I like a little bit, and I just boost it with a tube screamer or boost pedal, but I like a little more gain on it, and that's why we put that switch in,
Indeed, yes, but that, it makes it useful for if a guitar player does lots of different types of gigs, but likes the simplicity. So one night he's doing, say, doing classic rock from the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s, classic rock type sounds. It'll do that. Mm-hmm. If he's got a blues gig where it's somewhere in the middle, voice 2, you've got the scope.
And even super clean with like lots of reverb and really articulate sort of clean tones, it does that so well as well.
Yeah.
So bright switch, bit more detail. In my opinion, normally a bright switch is like humbucker, Telecaster, or it's like single coil or humbuckers.
Some guitars, they're naturally bright sounding, the pickups scan a smaller area. Yeah. There's less confusion as to what comes out.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need to add a bit of brightness if with a humbucker, it's a far more complex sound that comes out harmonically. Yeah. And adding a bright switch on the amp doesn't make it sound like a single coil, but it does at least enhance some of the brightness that can get lost a little bit. And it doesn't. That's not to say that if you have a Telecaster, you can still experiment with it.
Oh yes, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I like to, when I use tellies, or I like to use the tone control on the Telecaster as well, but having the possibility of having it bright if I need it.
Yes.
But you know, so with the switch up and then just take the tone control down a bit, you know, you got all of that scope for, got lots of room for activities. As they say.
Indeed.
So let's have a chat about what's on the back of the amp. What have we got there? We got a reverb on and off.
Yeah.
Just, you know, if you want to turn it on and off, that's a foot switch. Personally, I'll just leave it on one at a time and then turn it down on the front. You got the effects loop, and then you got some outputs for speakers. So cabinets.
Yes.
You know, I love the 2x12 upright that Victory they make with the handle on the top, and it's the Creamback 65M. And then we've done a 112 wide body cab. I love the 112 like narrow cab, but there was something about it with this sound. Do you remember when we did the that as soon as you got a little bit more width on the 112, it just made the amp go a little bit more
Breathe.
Yeah, it let it breathe a bit. So it's open backs, both of them. We chose the 65 medium magnet for both of them. It just works with everything, and recording it is another thing that it's just really good at that.
Yes.
It just records really well. Personally, I always suggest when people buy an amplifier, if they buy a head and a cab, I always suggest to them to buy the cab that goes with the amp, because as the person who has been, you know, we develop it, we will go through testing of different cabs and different speakers and all this sort of stuff, and we'll find out which one is the best for this. I mean, I love being able to buy a head, because you can have loads of heads and you can have them at home in your studio or whatever. But having the cab that goes with the amp, in my opinion, is really important. So there we go, guys. Thank you very much for watching our video here on the Victory Deputy. And Martin, thank you very much for your explanation, coming in and telling us all about it. If you want to know more, jump over to victoryamps.com, and we'll see you soon.